Alright, here we go. Yeah, boom. Got sound, got everything. So here we are, back again. And hey, it's Donkey Kong. I know we've been promising to do this for like 2 weeks now. For the past like 2 weeks, I've said, oh, next week will be Donkey Kong. And then I just kept pushing it off. And I kept pushing it off. So here we are. And yeah, we're finally doing Donkey Kong. Took me long enough. But, you know, we got around to it eventually. Oops. Hey, Psycoms, how you doing? Good to see you. So yeah, so today the goal is to beat the game. We've got 2 worlds left, World 7 and World 8. I 100% think we will be able to beat it. I've been told... I have been told that the final world in this game is a bitch and a half. That it is a nightmare. So I am going in fully expecting that. But other than that, I think it's going to take like 3 hours. Just if I had to make, you know, an educated guess. I would say maybe 3 hours. I think 3 hours makes sense. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for tonight. If we have to bullshit our way through the end, we bullshit our way through the end. But I've got some TV stuff to talk about. You know, we got an entire season of Spider-Man, an entire season of Moon Girl. So I've definitely found some stuff. But, you know, we're going to make it work. Because we're beating Donkey Kong. Is this our first silhouette level? I feel like all the silhouette levels have been bonus levels so far, and we've actually not played a single bonus level. This is the first one I've done. So are all the silhouette levels just bonuses? I hadn't really thought about it until just now, but I can't remember a single other silhouette level we've done until this point. So tonight we got 3 news stories to talk about, and then we got a bunch. I got some food stuff. I have been playing a singular video game. Well, I've played a little Splatoon, a little Smash Bros, but I honestly don't put those in the notes. Every week I usually play a little Splatoon, a little Smash Bros, and a little Mario Kart. Not much, but usually a little bit. And I just never put it in the notes because, like, oh wow, I played a few levels of Splatoon. Wow, no, you know, I won 5 games of Rainmaker, got up to level S, and then the season changed over. Oh wow, and now I'm back down to A rank again. That's not really interesting. By the way, that's like the 4th time that's happened. Where I've gotten to S rank only for the season to change over, and now I'm back down to A rank. But you know what happens. I did get a team kill, which was pretty cool. They were all converging on the Rainmaker, and I just went in and spamming with my bucket, and I got a total team kill. That was pretty cool. But yeah, so yeah, we got news, we got some video games, I've got a bunch of TV stuff. My goal, even though, and of course we got the Pokémon Presents, which is going to take up a lot of time. But my hope is that, you know, at some point talking about television, we will do most of the stuff. That hopefully I've got enough, you know, things to talk about, you know, things I've been enjoying to go for the 3 hours it takes to beat Donkey Kong. If it takes us less than 3 hours, that'd be nice. But again, I've heard that last world's a bitch and a half. I still hate, right now my least favorite world was World 4. World 4 was still a nightmare. But, you know, I'm prepared for anything. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see. So I guess let's get into the news. So what news stuff do I have to talk about? We got a new Tony Hawk game. They're teasing a new Tony Hawk. And I do want to talk about that. We got Warner Brothers. We got a bunch of updates from Warner Brothers about their new game, what they're planning, what they're, canceling, because they've canceled a game, they've shut down a studio. Overall, just not a good time at Warner Brothers. And I'm pretty sure the story is... I wrote everything down on Tuesday. I'm pretty sure things have gotten worse since Tuesday, but Tuesday's what I have written down, so Tuesday's what we're rolling with. And then, of course, we got the Pokémon Presents. I've got a lot to say. I've been getting in fights over on TikTok about how good the new Pokemon game looks. I'm clearly in the minority, as people like it more than me, or people hate it way more than I do. But then again, Pokemon fans are gluttons who would not be satisfied with all the riches of heaven. Like, what else is new? Boom, Nintendo fans. So, let's start off with Tony Hawk. So, I am a fan of the Tony Hawk games, but specifically, the one I had growing up. I was younger. Let's just go with that. Let's just use growing up. I had Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. That game, I know people, say that, oh, the later Tony Hawk games, 4 is, like, of the originals, they're the worst ones. It's not. Honestly, by the time you get around, I understand it's like the Mario Party thing, that when you do the same thing so many times, they kind of get a little bit repetitive. That doesn't mean it's bad. I will stand by Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is good. I really did enjoy that game when I was younger. Might I be completely blinded by nostalgia, and will I eventually find out the truth? Oh yeah, that's totally possible. That's what happened with Sonic Colors. Is that I loved that game on the Wii, but then when the remake came out, it was like, oh wait, this isn't good. Or at least as good as I wanted it to be. But I love that game, man. I have so many memories. You go to Alcatraz. There's a college level, which is a lot of fun. At least I think it's college. The zoo. There's a zoo where you grind off an elephant's back, and it opens up an aquarium section. Which, to be fair, the aquarium section's not that big. But it was still like, oh my god, it was such a memorable thing. You jump in the towers, and it teleports you to the top. And then you grind the pink elephants. It's a whole thing. I'm sure there's some more generic levels I'm forgetting. Jango Fett was in that game, because that was back when the games had they were made by Neversoft, which had connection with Star Wars. So, Darth Maul was in Tony Hawk 3, and Jango Fett was in Tony Hawk 4, and that was really cool to see. Man, I used to love 4. I played a little bit of 3. I did not own 3, but I think a cousin owned it or something like that. But I always had so much more fun with 4. So I bring all that up, my history with the Tony Hawk series. Because basically there have been rumors for the past few weeks that we were getting a new Tony Hawk game. That, an announcement was right around the corner. And so on Monday of this week, Tony Hawk himself came out and was like, yep, there is a new Tony Hawk announcement coming next week. This is the announcement of the announcement. And the announcement will be on March 4th. So when I saw that announcement, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. New Tony Hawk. I do love me some Tony Hawk. That sounds like a lot of fun. I did not put the pieces together until, like, the next day, when it was like, oh, the announcement's March 3rd, or March 4th. Oh, so that's the 3rd month in the 4th day. Oh shit, this is probably a remake of 3 and 4, isn't it? I don't know why, but on the day they announced this, my brain did not put it together that this is a remake of 3 and 4. Which, yeah, I love 4. Am I excited for this? Of course I am. Do I need to play the 1 and 2 remake at some point? Yeah, probably. I'll be honest, I do own it. I bought it a while ago. But I love 4. I'm excited to see 4 again. Do I expect the Star Wars stuff to still be there? No, obviously not. But, I'd love to go back to Alcatraz, go back to the college, go back to the zoo. What other levels were there? I don't know, I remember at the college there were like cars you can grind off of. There's the clock tower you can jump out of. In the Alcatraz, there's also a tower. And you can go inside the prison. In the zoo, there's the aquarium, there's the elephant. I'm trying to think of other levels. I don't think there's a mall. There might be a mall, but I don't think there's a mall. I don't know. It's been a while, but I do really love 4. So that's kind of why I'm excited for this, because I am a massive fan of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. Love that game, and so I'm excited to play it again. In theory, I don't know. I'm pretty sure people like the remake of 1 and 2. I know Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 was awful, right? It's considered one of the worst games of all time. Because, you know, it was an always online game, it was buggy, it was broken. I don't know, I didn't check it out. I did probably watch a YouTube video on it, though. But I didn't play 1 or 2. At least I don't think I did. The last skateboarding game I played was, I did not mean to do that, that was an accident. The last skateboarding game I played was Skatebird on Xbox Game Pass. Which that was a game where you were a bird and you were skateboarding. And, you know, I was kind of hopeful, like, oh, you know, a skateboarding bird game. That looks kind of cute, you know, maybe it'll be like a Tony Hawk game. And I did not love that game. My biggest problem is, at least for me, but I know this isn't the only problem, and I know I'm not the only one to get this. I eventually hit a skill ceiling in Skatebird. It eventually got to a point where I was like only so good at the game. So I was able to get through the first few worlds perfectly fine. But eventually when I hit like the 4th or 5th world, the skill ceiling was kind of above me. And no matter how hard I pushed myself, I just couldn't get past my skill ceiling. And I wasn't having a great time. I mean, some of it was okay, but the controls were kind of weird. I just wanted a game that kind of played like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and that's not what I got from it. So I'm hopeful that they do something good. I hope all the cheat codes are still there, man. I remember that game, like, you know, whenever I think of big head mode in a video game, for some reason, Tony Hawk is like one of the first things I think of. Even though they're not the first game to do it by a long shot. And honestly, there's a good chance 4 didn't even have a big head mode. It's been a while. But I remember them having a bunch of like fun cheat codes, you know, moon gravity, slow-mo. Just, you know, being able to have fun. Remember when games used to have cheat codes that just let you have fun? That basically were early versions of like modern day accessibility. Yeah, I used to love that shit. And I hope all that's there. Even if they rebrand it to accessibility and whatnot, accessibility and options, I'm fine with that. Because Tony Hawk is now owned by Microsoft, right? Because there was a room... Because the original Tony Hawk remake was done by, I want to say Visceral? And then after it released, I want to say Visceral closed. Activision either closed Visceral, or they turned them into a Call of Duty studio, which is why we thought this remake was never going to happen. But here we are, and it's happening, and while I don't think this is Microsoft's, you know, doing, who knows, I could be wrong. Oh my gosh. Either way, you know, a new Tony Hawk's game sounds fun. Or even if it's just a remake, I am perfectly okay with a remake of 3 and 4. And I hope it's good like I remember it. I hope that, no, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is actually good, and it's not you know, this isn't a Sonic Generation thing. I really don't want that. But so there's our good news. Now let's get to the bad news. So Warner Brothers. So this came from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg. And basically, because of all of Warner Brothers' bad performances recently, you know, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, Multiverse's failure, Warner Brothers, while not completely ditching video games, is pulling back, basically. They're closing some of their game studios, they're canceling some games, and, you know, they say they're gonna, like, refocus. I don't know, I could totally see Warner Brothers starting to consider to sell stuff. That might be something they do. So basically what happened, we found out right on Tuesday that Monolith Productions, the guys who, you know, the studio that was working on the Wonder Woman game, that made Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, and a bunch of other games. They've been around since the 90s. If you want a good look at Monolith Productions, Mark Brown over at Game Maker's Toolkit made a 10-minute video, real quick, real simple, just talking about 5 great games made by Monolith Productions. Not to be completely confused with Monolith Studios obviously. But they made a video explaining, you know, this is what's going on. You know, these are some of the good games they made. This is what made them special. You know, the fact that Monolith Productions created the Nemesis system. This big, you know, innovative system that allowed games to be more flexible, more dynamic, copyrighted it, and then never used it again. They used it in 2 games. They were going to use it in their Wonder Woman game. But nope, that got canceled. Because basically, the Wonder Woman game, I guess they were experimenting with the idea of, like, what if, you know, you can fight your enemies, obviously, but what if you befriend them? Because, you know, a part of Wonder Woman's character is compassion. So what if in the Wonder Woman game, on top of beating people up, you could befriend them? And I think that's a great idea. I think that sounds really interesting. But nope, I guess behind the scenes, things were not going well. The game was in development hell. And I want to say, like, last year, basically around this time last year, the game effectively restarted development. At least that's what I remember hearing Greg Miller say. And you know what? It sucks. It sucks that, you know, Warner Brothers just keeps making these Batman games. Which Rocksteady is not being shut down, you know. Rocksteady's gonna keep, you know, alive and doing whatever comes next. Presumably a Batman game. Supposedly they were working on, like, a Flash game or something. Jason Schreier did say that they're not doing a Superman game. That they've never even talked about doing a Superman game. Which does suck. I do think you could make a good Superman game. But no, Wonder Woman... You know, I look at James Gunn recently did his whole announcement like, hey, here's some new projects in the DC universe. Hey, we're getting a Starfire show. We're getting a Teen Titans movie or something. We're getting a Green Lantern show. And sure, all that stuff could be great. I'm especially excited for the Green Lantern stuff because it takes place in the same universe as My Adventures with Superman. That sounds exciting because that show is really good. But man, where is our Wonder Woman animated show? Because, you know, people know about Batman, people know about Superman, and that's because they grew up with Batman the Animated Series, Batman, like 2004, Batman the Brave and the Bold. You know, people know Superman from the 90s show or from My Adventures with Superman. Wonder Woman has had 2 movies and a TV show in, what, the 60s or 70s? I don't remember how old I don't remember when the Linda Carter show came out. It's been a long time. Like, I saw someone saying, like, well, oh, maybe, you know, the struggle with making a Wonder Woman game is that Wonder Woman doesn't have the same lore as Batman or Superman. And that's just wrong. That is just blatantly wrong. Wonder Woman has the exact same lore density as any other superhero, but people don't know her lore because they've never made, like, an animated show. All we've got is 2 movies, one of which, you know, was straight from the source material. Not that it's a bad movie at all. I will defend Patty Jenkins' first Wonder Woman movie. I legitimately do think that is the best movie in the DC universe. So I'll defend that one any day of the week. But the second Wonder Woman movie sucked. Wonder Woman 1984 was fucking awful. And then that's it. We've got one TV show from way back in the day. I mean, technically there is that Professor Marston movie, which about the creation of Wonder Woman, but that's a whole different thing. That I do actually enjoy that movie, and I do kind of recommend checking it out. It is really if you know nothing about Professor Marston, the guy who created Wonder Woman, and the guy who created the lie detector, it's super interesting. Him and his wife and their other partner. I seriously do recommend that. I remember just kind of going to see that one day and being like thoroughly impressed with it. It's not anything like mind-blowing, but it's good. So yeah, I feel like Wonder Woman has the same amount of lore and characters as any other superhero. The only difference is because she doesn't have a movie, we never really talk about it. People don't really know the Wonder Woman lore. And that kind of sucks, you know? I mean, yes, she's in the Justice League show, and yes, we do get some of her lore, some of her characters. She's in that DC Superhero Girls show, which every episode I've seen of that is okay. So, like, there is some stuff out there, but she really needs her own show, and I really hope we do get that. Because I would love some good, classic, honest Wonder Woman. I would love a Wonder Woman animated show. And currently, the Absolute Wonder Woman comic, I've only read the first 2 issues. But I really did like the first 2 issues. And I actually, after the announcement of the game being canceled, I did go pick up issues 3, 4, and 5. Because I think 5 released on Wednesday. Haven't read them yet, but I did pick them up. So yeah, Wonder Woman is interesting. And she just does not get enough credit for how good of a character she can be. But, so that's Monolith Productions. It really sucks. Of course, you know, as people have pointed out, right, they have the copyright over the Nemesis system. And Warner Brothers doesn't lose that copyright until, like, what, 2036? So it's at least another 11 years. That sucks. Because there are so many great games that can use the system in so many interesting ways. My personal a game I'd love to see, Metroid Prime. If the idea of Metroid Prime using the Nemesis system, and you know, you kill space pirates, and you know, some of them survive, some of them remember your name, and come after you seeking revenge. That sounds interesting. That's a great idea. Of course, you know, will that ever happen? Probably not. Can someone in theory pay Warner Brothers to use the Nemesis system? I guess in theory, maybe? But will they actually do that? I don't know. But the Nemesis system was a great idea. And this is why I'm against copywriting features like this in the game industry. It's the same thing I'll say about Pokemon and all their copyrights against Pal World. Copyright shouldn't work like that. You shouldn't be able to copyright mechanics like that. Fuck Warner Brothers and fuck Nintendo for trying to do stuff like this. That's what ruins innovation in the games industry. That's what, you know, limits creativity. That's what restricts it as an art form. Like, imagine, you know, if people could, like, copyright, like, genres. Or imagine if, like, the woman who created the plot twist, the butler did it, copyrighted that twist, so that way nobody else could ever do it. And then, you know, when her own butler tried to kill her, that could never be told. That story couldn't be told because, you know, she's the one who owned the copyright, which means she would be the one to tell it. Copywriting is dumb. I hate copyright. Trademarks, patents, all this bullshit. And don't even get me started on healthcare. Healthcare is a whole other beast of burden. So yeah, God, another studio that got closed is Player First Games. This is the studio that made Multiverses, And yet, because they had already announced that Multiverses was closing in May, and, you know, they were shutting the servers down, which is honestly something I didn't really feel like they needed to do. Like, they don't need to take the game off the market. They don't need to shut the servers down. But nope, they're doing that, and part of it is definitely because Player First Games is being shut down. And yeah, it's, again, there's a good idea in Multiverses. I will stand by that. Somewheres in there is a good idea. It's just a shoddy execution, you know, stuffing the game with microtransactions and loot boxes. That's really part of what kills it. Them taking the game off the market for a year to relaunch it. Really, because, you know, I was talking with somebody, and we were talking about Smash Bros. Now, I've been of the firm belief that we are not getting a new Smash Bros. On the Switch 2. That they're just going to re-release Ultimate. And I seem to be pretty alone in that opinion, but I still stand by it. But they were talking about, well, if, you know, we're not getting a new Smash Bros., who's going to fill that gap? Because, like, you know, I talk about Mario Kart being the next Smash Bros. And becoming like Nintendo Kart. And I still think that's a good idea. And sure, that fills, you know, people who want, like, character announcements and whatnot. But for the actual genre of platform character fighter, what are they going to go to? I mean, they're going to keep playing Smash Bros. Ultimate, obviously. I mean, people have been playing Melee for over 20 years. If they can play Melee for over 20 years, they can continue to play Smash Bros. Ultimate for a few. Like, that has not changed. Mind you, that's important to say. That has not changed. If people will continue to play one game, they'll continue to play a different game. So that's not really what I'm worried about. But I guess that is a decent point, you know. Something's gonna have to be replaced by something eventually. And if we aren't getting a new Smash Bros., who's gonna fill the gap? And, well, I can tell you it's not gonna be Nickelodeon, even though they're probably gonna try again. And it's not going to be Smash Bros. Well, it might be Smash Bros., but it's not gonna be Multiverses either. Because people do want a new character fighter, probably. Maybe this is PlayStation's chance at redemption. You know, people seem to fondly remember PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, even if nobody else does. So maybe this time they, you know, take another shot at it. Maybe this time they do it good. I don't know. We'll see. They won't. They're not going to. Because even if you do, I honestly think everything that PlayStation All-Stars tries to do, that, you know, Smash Bros. Also does good at, Astrobot does better. Because Astrobot is a great game Astrobot does what Smash Bros. Does when it comes to characters and announcements and character hype. I honestly think it does a pretty solid job at that. So yeah, we'll see. And the final studio that was closed down was Warner Brothers San Diego. What does Warner Brothers San Diego do? I don't know. Let me look it up. San Diego. Literally all I'm seeing is news articles about the Wonder Woman game and whatnot. I don't actually know what Warner Brothers San Diego does. Yeah, I just looked up Warner Brothers San Diego games, and literally nothing. They might just be a support studio. I have no idea, but I don't see anything. So, yes, so they shut down Warner Brothers San Diego, And then eventually Warner Brothers did put out like an official statement. Because originally this all came from Jason Schreier. And then like a few hours later, Warner Brothers put out an official statement that yes, they are closing these studios. You know, they confirmed it. And then they said in the future, they will focus on making Harry Potter games, which I would not bet on Joanne. You know, that turf is not a good bet. But guess what? They're already rebooting Harry Potter. They announced the casting of the new Dumbledore. Because, like, fuck, man. Really? Really? But that's where we're at. So I guess that's what we're going to do. But they're going to do Harry Potter. They're going to do more Mortal Kombat. Which, I mean, I know they recently casted... Not Johnny Storm. That's the Fantastic Four guy. Johnny Cage? Luke Cage? Johnny Cage. Probably Johnny Cage. You know, the actor in the second... They're making a sequel to the Mortal Kombat movie from, like, 2020 or 2021. That one's getting a sequel. So, okay, more Mortal Kombat. I don't know if the most recent Mortal Kombat was good. I didn't really hear people say anything on it, to be honest. It might be. I know that game was basically a soft reboot. And then they're going to do more stuff with DC, even though they just canceled a DC game. You know, listening to Greg Miller talk about all this, one of the things he brings up is that Warner Brothers' problem is that they won't let studios be studios. A lot of Warner Brothers' problems comes from studio interference. Or executive interference. That's the word I was looking for. That basically the executives at these game studios come in and are like, oh, well, you know, you can't make a Flash game because Flash isn't popular enough. You have to make a Wonder Woman, you know, you can't make a Flash game because the Flash movie just flopped in theaters. Right? Like, even though, you know, a game and a movie are completely different things, they will cancel the game because a movie did bad, even though the game could be great. And in theory, you know, something similar is happening to Wonder Woman. They canceled the game. Or, you know, there's a lot of reasons, obviously, why the game got canceled. But Warner Brothers, the studio, doesn't trust the popularity of Wonder Woman. And they'll just keep going back to Batman. They just keep going back to Batman. And yes, I do agree. I do concur with Greg Miller. You know, in the same way that James Gunn took over DC Studios, let Greg Miller take over Warner Brothers DC Games. He'll put them in the right track, even if it's just hiring a bunch of indie devs to, you know, make their passion projects. I believe he'll do something great. Oh, and then of course Game of Thrones. Has there been a Game of Thrones game? I know there's been mobile games. Mobile games that nobody cares about. But has there been, like, a Game of Thrones game? Because I can see the potential there. That could, in theory, be fun. And at least isn't attached to a fucking turf. But as far as I know, there's been nothing. So, yeah. Oh, God. God, why am I always dying? Why is it that whenever I do these streams, I'm fucking dying? I was literally perfectly fine before we started. But then the second we start, oh my gosh. So that's all I gotta say about Warner Brothers. You know, this all sucks, because I want a good Wonder Woman game. I want a good Superman game. You know, I'm sure they could make other good games, and they just don't. They just don't, and it sucks. This is, hey, guess what? Reason, you know, 1000, the video game industry fucking sucks nowadays. What else is new? Is Warner Brothers going to try to sell out to Microsoft or Sony or whoever? Disney? God forbid Disney. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see how the Minecraft movie does. Because I'm pretty sure that's Warner Brothers. At least I think it is. And we did just get a new trailer. I did watch the new trailer. That sure looks like a movie. I will give you that. That sure does look like a movie with Jack Black and Jason Momoa in it. Yep, sure does. I'll watch. I realized the Minecraft movie comes out the day after the Nintendo Switch Direct. Well, technically it comes out 2 days later, but, you know, if you see it, like, opening night, or... It used to be opening night, now it's open... You know, the real opening day is usually the Thursday before. Like, I can go see it at, like, 3 o'clock that day. That's not midnight releases anymore. We're far away from that. But, yeah, the Switch Direct is Wednesday morning. And then the Minecraft movie comes out the next day on Thursday. Again, in early showings, in which is usually when I see stuff. So whatever that show is that week, that's going to be a busy week. Yes, and yes, I will be seeing the Minecraft movie. But my biggest hope is that it's not boring. That is kind of the only thing I can hope for at this point. Is just don't be boring. If it's bad, let it be the fun kind of bad, not the boring kind of bad. That's all I ask. Please, that doesn't feel like a big ask, but anything's possible. So we got the Pokémon Presents. Let's just go over all the boring stuff first, you know, the mobile game stuff. Of course, there's some okay stuff in here, but let's go over all that. So the first thing is we have Pokémon Concierge. This is the Netflix stop motion show, which actually I do think looks fun. They showed off some animation tests for some new Pokemon. And yeah, that looks fun. That looks creative. So yeah, I think Pokémon Concierge, they put the first 4 episodes up on YouTube if you're interested, and the new season comes out in September. Yep, all that seems fine. Pokemon Go is having a Gen 5 Fest, so they're doing a bunch of Gen 5 Pokemon stuff. I don't really care. I haven't played Pokemon Go in years. Pokemon Masters, they're doing special costumes for the Gen 3 protagonists. And they're giving the Gen 3 protagonists shiny Megas. Which, I do like the shiny Megas designs. But I will never play Pokemon Masters. It's basically just one of those waifu gacha games. Like, I know there's, in theory, gameplay there. I have never seen a single gameplay footage of Pokemon Masters. All I've seen is the waifu stuff. So, yeah. We got Pokemon Cafe Remix. Hey, they're doing an Appleton drink. It actually looks pretty good. At least in real life. I think it'd be good. I like apples, though. People like apples. But yeah, we got that. Pokemon Unite, they're adding Suicune, Alolan Raichu, and Alcremie. I like the addition of Alcremie. I think that's different. I think that's interesting. But I will be dead and buried before I play League of Legends. Pokemon Pocket TCG got an update. They added a new pack, Triumphant Light, which, it's the Arceus pack. I think this came too soon. I still am missing so many Pokemon in the Dialga pack. The Dialga and Palkia one. I think, I can actually just pull it up right now. Because I will have a pack to open here in a little bit. But I think in the Dialga and Palkia pack, I'm still missing, like, not counting the full art cards. You know, some of the full art, the full bodies. I'm not talking about those. Yeah, I've still got 27 minutes. So let me go through the sets. In Genetic Apex, I have 195 out of 226. Okay. That's the original set. I'm missing a bunch of stuff just going through it. In Mythical Island, which was the Mew set, I am missing 2 things. I am missing Gyarados, the Gyarados EX, I assume. And then I am missing Pidgeot EX. So I'm only missing 2 cards. And, of course, obviously some full arts and whatnot, but I'm not too beat up over that. And then in Space Time Smackdown, I have 123 of 155. So I'm still missing a few good things. But they, you know, I never even... I'm assuming there's a full art Dialga. Not a... Yeah, full art... Let's go animated. Let's go full art animated. Which is like, you know, the rare ones. At least I think they're supposed to be. I have the full art, you know, animated Palkia, which I actually really like. I think it does, like, you know, that famous thing. I think it's the MC Escher stairs. I think that's what that's called. It does that. I actually think it's a really cool card. I do have a 2-star Dialga EX, which is like the full image of the Pokemon, but I don't actually have the full art, so I never found that one. And then, of course, now we have our new one, Triumphant Light, which is 75 cards. I've opened up a single pack, so I have 6 of them, because I also think I did a Wonder Pool. So that's the new pack. I mean, there are some cool guys in there. I'm excited to see Tyranitar. That's always awesome. I'd be curious to see what a full art Arceus looks like. That sounds pretty cool. But other than that, I feel like this was too... I honestly could have gone another month. Because you can tell... I want to say... So basically, you can open... I've never spent any money on the game. I've never spent any of the hourglasses. So I've only ever opened up the 2 packs a day. And so in the original set, I opened up over 100 packs. That's basically how long the original set lasted. Almost 3 months? Yeah, basically almost 3 months. Probably a little... I'm pretty sure I went back near the end of Mystical Island, once I was only missing like 1 or 2 things. I'm pretty sure I went back and started opening some of, you know, the original pack, Genetic Apex. But, yeah. Yeah, this is still a game. I refuse to spend money on it. But, you know, getting your 2 free hits a day, that's actually been, you know, I've been down to clown. You know, the second I start spending money, you know, I have a problem. But until then, just opening up cards to get, you know, cute little artworks, I'm down for that. And I will continue to be down for that. Because, yeah, I think I had only opened... I'd only opened 60 of the Space Time Smackdown packs. So I was definitely... God damn it. I was definitely missing some. That's to say the least. But now we got the new set. They announced... Oh, also speaking of the trading card game, they announced that Mega Evolutions are coming to the trading card game. I saw a lot of people say that this is, like, the first time Megas are coming to the trading card game. And even though I haven't played the trading card game since... maybe, like, Gen 5? Let's be generous and say Gen 5. I haven't bought Pokemon cards. Like, the only Pokemon cards I've gotten in... God damn it. The only Pokemon cards I've gotten in a long time have come from, like, Happy Meals. You know, like McDonald's Happy Meals as, like, a joke. I don't collect Pokemon cards. I don't do that. At least anymore, and I won't. But I was like, I'm 99% sure they have had Megas in the trading card game before. This is not the first time they're doing Megas. And yeah, I was right. You know, other people were trying to gaslight me unintentionally, but, you know, still gaslighting. Yeah, we're getting Megas back. Okay, cool. Whatever. I don't care. Now for the 2 announcements people actually care about. So the first one is Pokemon Champions. So this is a mobile game, but it's also a Switch game. So it's going to be available on both. And it, from my understanding, is the next evolution of Pokemon Battle Revolution, of Pokemon Stadium, where it's a game entirely based around battling. And you know, that in theory, I think, because I know, you know, people use Pokemon Showdown a lot. Pokemon Showdown's kind of the big dog's biscuit. Anyone who does competitive Pokemon will, you know, test things out in Pokemon Showdown before, you know, going to the real game to do stuff. And I know I've used Pokemon Showdown in the past, you know, I've had my fun with it. Back when I used to care about battling. But I understand the appeal of, like, hey, you know, we're going to make this game based entirely around competitive battling. There's going to be Mega Evolutions in it. Terastallizing is going to be in it. I hope they bring back the other two. I hope they bring back Z-Moves and Gigantamax as well. I'd love to see them, you know, try to balance all that. That'd be very interesting. This is where it is. This is 100% where it is. Yeah, here we go. So I hope they bring those back, even though, you know, nobody really likes Terastallizing or Gigantamaxing. I know Showdown does it, where you can put all four of those mechanics together and see the consequences of your actions. Even if it's just like certain modes. Like, hey, here's a Gigantamax mode, here's a Terastallize only mode, here's anything goes. I think that'd be interesting. You know, just expand on competitive, make things more complicated. I think there's a good idea there. And, you know, having it on the go, it doesn't take Pokemon from Pokemon Home, but it connects to Pokemon Home, so that way, like, let's say you've made some competitive Pokemon, and, you know, Scarlet and Violet, or Sword and Shield, you're just able to transfer them over. So that's nice, that's convenient. You know, because that's kind of what I did. And in theory, in theory, this is going to be the first Pokemon game in a long time to have every Pokemon in it. I know that sounds like a bitch and a half for balancing, but that legitimately might be what they do. Because, you know, with Legends ZA, we now have 3D models of every Pokemon. Because there are like less than 20, not counting like Mega Evolutions. There are only like 20 Pokemon missing in Legends Arceus. Less than that even. I literally think it's just the 3 elemental monkeys from Gen 5, Patrat and Watchog from Gen 5, and then the dog from Gen 6, Furfrou. That's it. Every other Pokemon in these games has been available between Sword and Shield, Pikachu and Eevee, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Legends Arceus, and Scarlet and Violet. Between those 5 games, you can get every Pokemon. So, in theory, you know, having a game with every Pokemon, primarily focused around battling, you know, presumably you'll be able to rent teams. I think that's all a good idea. The question is, how are they going to monetize it? Is it going to be a thing where you have to, you know, is this going to be a game you buy? And it's just like, this is the definitive competitive game, and as long as you buy the Switch version, you can get the mobile version for free. Is it going to be a free game across all 3 systems, but there's going to be microtransactions? You know, you're going to have to buy, you know, you're going to have to earn in-game money to rent out teams, but you can also pay real-world money to rent out those teams. Is that what it's going to be? Are they going to put it on, like, a subscription model, like Pokemon Home, where every year you have to pay, like, $15, and it just allows you to do competitive battling for that entire year? I think all 3 of those options are a possibility. It'd be more than $15, obviously. It's the Pokemon Company. They're greedy as hell. I'll be honest, I don't remember... Playing Donkey Kong right now, I do not remember this level at all. I actually think the idea of, like, a space launch here, presumably into a boss fight, sounds... It's, like, a really cool idea for a level. I think this is great. I do not... Oh, shit. I thought that was in the... I was kind of uncertain whether or not that was in the background. This is a really cool idea for a level. I don't this feels very Wallace and Gromit to me. Maybe it's just because I've watched the first Wallace and Gromit movie relatively recently. Yeah, no, this is a really cool level. I don't remember this at all. So yeah, that's Pokemon Championships. I feel like we don't know enough about this game yet. And based on the fact that it's just in development, I think this is probably like a year away. But the one thing I think is good about this, in theory, is that because of this game, because we now have, you know, what is, in theory, the official Pokemon battling game, where they can do all their competitive battling, that would allow the main series games to be more innovative, to be more creative. You know, if they want to use real-time combat, they can do an entire mainline game based around real-time combat and have turn-based combat in Pokemon Champions. They don't have to worry about doing both things because Champions will always exist. I think that, in theory, that's a good idea. I like that rocket level. I wish it was a little longer. You know, put some checkpoints in there. That could have been fun. But no, I get the appeal. I get the idea. I know where they're coming from. I think there's some potential there with Pokemon Champions. But we'll just have to wait and see. There's going to be a catch. I know it. We'll have to see. And Legend CA. So, the internet has collectively decided that fuck Legend CA. The game, I legitimately feel like that other people are just looking at a different game. That the game I'm seeing and the game they're seeing are two completely different games. I've seen so many people be like, oh, this is dog shit. This is so ugly. I hate how this game looks. It looks fine. Are you gluttons who are not satisfied with all of the riches of heaven so starved that you forgot what a bad game looks like? This doesn't... I've seen much worse games. I'd say this game, I'm not going to act like it's the most amazing thing ever. Right? Even by Switch standards. This is no Luigi's Mansion 3. But it looks fine. There's nothing offensive about this game. At worst, you could call it a little bit repetitive because you're in a city. It looks fine. I don't know what the fuck has gotten up people's butts that just make this look like the worst game in the world. It looks fine. And it's still, in theory, like 6 months till release, if not longer. We're still in February as of the day I'm streaming this. They could, you know, make some slight improvements. This isn't the end-all be-all. And it's not going to be huge improvements, but they'll make some. I don't get what the fuck people are on about here. I legitimately feel like I'm looking at a different game with the amount of entitlement I have seen from some Pokemon fans. Like, and listen, I get it. You're a kid who grew up with Pokemon, and now you're a mature adult with a job, and you want Pokemon to be as mature as you are. But guess what? That's not what the developers want. The developers have the right to make the game however they want. If they want to make Baby's First Platformer, they are completely within their rights to make Baby's First RPG. That's what I meant to say. I have no problem with that. In some ways, I'm perfectly okay with them being Baby's First RPG. Because I know it's Baby's First RPG. And I know what some people will say, well, eventually, you know, people will grow up. They'll demand more. Guess what, fucker? There will always be new babies to play Baby's First RPG. New babies are born every day. You know, a sucker's born every minute. Same thing with a Pokemon fan. Literally. So, I feel like people are blowing this way too much out of the water. Yeah, is it look amazing? No. But it's fine. Oh my... Like, people are pulling out that one Scarlet and Violet screenshot where it's like the ugly-ass mountain and the waterfall, and then showing it next to Scarlet and Violet, acting like it's the... Or Legend ZA, acting like it's the same thing. They look nothing alike. I have no idea what the fuck people are talking about. I do not remember this boss at all. I should say that. I don't remember this boss. So I don't know what people are talking about with that complaint. The complaint I do kind of get is the starters. So our 3 starters are Chikorita, Tepig, and Totodile. 2 Johto starters, 1 Unova starter. And that's just kind of weird. Like, I get it. Legends Arceus used a Unova starter, a Johto starter, and a Alolan starter, right? It had gens 2, 5, and 7. I get it. That's what it wanted to do. So, people for ZA wanted them to go to some other generations. They wanted a Gen 5 starter, which I know, again, we already got one, but they wanted another one. They wanted a Gen 5 starter, they wanted a Gen 4 starter, and they wanted a Gen 8 starter. Honestly, a good roster. Piplup, Snivy, and Cinderace. I think that's a fine roster. Nothing special, but nothing terrible. But no, that's not what they're doing. Instead, we're getting 2 Gen 2 starters, Totodile and Chikorita, and then we're getting Tepig. Now, I totally agree with a lot of people saying, like, yeah, you know what? Every Pokemon's somebody's favorite. If we just do the popular Pokemon, then somebody's going to get left out. Right? It's basically the same argument people were using for the Bring Back the National Dex thing. That if you only do the popular Mons, somebody's favorite will be left out, because every Pokemon is somebody's favorite. So on that front, I do agree. And that's why I stand by Chikorita. It's the one I like, fair enough, but I'll stand by Chikorita. I think Tepig is fine. I have no real complaints with Emboar. Tepig is fine. The one that I don't think is Totodile. I know Totodile of these 3 is the most popular, but you know what they should have done? They should have done Popplio. Popplio's, he's okay popular, but he didn't make it into Smash Bros. He didn't make it into that Pokemon fighting game everyone forgets about. Decidueye and Incineroar did. Give me some Popplio, give me some Primarina love. Because I really like Primarina as well. So that's kind of my one thing. Like, I understand if you want to do the different games. That makes sense. But I kind of feel like you're kind of wasting something. Like, if you want to stick to those 3 games, I get it. But do one from each. Because now, in theory, the next game is going to have Snivy and the 2 Gen 7 starters. And that's totally possible. But I kind of feel like it's missing something, So I get the complaints about the starters. I don't think it's the end of the world like some people are acting. Find one you like. And hey, guess what? If you don't like any of them, maybe it's time to learn to like one of them. Maybe they make Meganium competitively viable for once. Not that competitive is the end-all be-all of the game, but, maybe they make it good, and maybe you learn to like Meganium. Maybe you like Feraligatr. Maybe you like What's-His-Face. I don't know, but, figure it out. Alright. Let me go get some water real quick, because I am out, and I've been coughing up for the past hour. And we'll come back and we'll continue talking about Pokemon. Alright, here we are back. So some other things. There had been for ZA, at some point they said, like, the entire game was going to be in Lumio City. I can't remember if that was a leak or if that was a thing that they had actually revealed. Turns out that was completely correct. The entirety of ZA takes place in Lumio City, and you're working on the Lumios redevelopment project. Okay, that makes sense. I definitely think it is a weird change of pace, especially because Kalos has a really... I feel like an open world Kalos would be a lot of fun. There's a lot of potential for them in a world to explore, because there's a lot of areas in Kalos that you never get to see. Plus, we now know from the Terra leaks, there's an entire southern region that was was planned for the game that never made it into the final cut. So I feel like there was more to explore in Kalos. But the idea of just doing Lumio City, depending on how they do it, I think could be really interesting. I had the theory while watching the thing that I'm not the only one to come up with this. Plenty of other people have said this by this point. That what if the game exists between the ideas of modernism, futurism, I guess the better word, and the past. That as you're trying to redevelop Lumio City, you have to choose between, the Quasar Foundation. I can't remember what they're actually called. And you have to choose between AZ. Right? AZ, the former king of Kalos, he believes in tradition and ideals, and so, you can redevelop the city to be more past-like, or you can work with the Jita and Jet. Is it Jita or is it Jet? It's one of them. And Venny, and, make the city all futuristic. And I saw someone bring out, Zygarde's Pokedex entries, and how Zygarde is all about balance. And that, maybe, depending on how you play it, Zygarde will be mad at the player for what route they choose to go. And yeah, I can see the possibility there. And I like the idea of the city looking different based on how you do the story. Kind of like, I think it was Dying Light 2, where it was like, oh yeah, you can flood this entire area of town. And that just kind of locks it off to the player. That's really interesting. So I like, in theory, I know some people will hate the idea of story, depending on which path you pick, story content will be cut off. But I think that makes the game more replayable. And normally when people talk about Pokemon, they talk about post-games. They don't really talk about, replayability. Even though, things like Nuzlocke exist and whatnot that, make the games more replayable. But I just think there's potential there. So yeah, we got that. Seeing AZ again is really cool. Presumably, him and Floette are there. So this probably takes place after the events of Legends, or after the events of X and Y, excuse me. Which I think that's a good idea, continuing from where we left off. I've seen some people disappointed that this game takes place in the present. That, the original Legends game was about going back into the past and exploring the legends. And, Kalos has this lore about this, Pokemon War 3,000 years ago, where AZ was the king and made this super weapon that, ended the war and created Mega Evolution, but at what cost? And, people want that story. And I get that. I get why people want that story. But Pokemon's never going to tell a war story. They'll talk about war. Sure, they've talked about war since Gen 1. But they're never actually gonna make a war story. You want a war story so much, do it yourself. You want to make a story about war, I don't know, make a game called Snakewood and see how that turns out. Oh wait, we actually already know how that turns out. I don't know, maybe make one about demon sacrifices. Make a Pokemon game about the nuclear bomb. I'm sure that will turn out great. And that Pokemon fans, never let Pokemon fans cook because they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And their idea that sounds good isn't actually good. And, is totally just edgelord. Oh my god, the Pokemon War. Here I was fighting in the Pokemon War 1,000 years ago. Me and my squadron went into the trenches. Me and my squadron went into the trenches. I watched a Gardevoir get her arms torn off. I've never been the same since. Pokemon PTSD and Pokemon Veterans Affairs. That doesn't cover any of your actual medical problems. because they're going to deny your insurance. Fucking Christ. I mean, veterans already have it bad enough with how much this country wants to fuck them over after, you know, after they get out of service. And now they've got fucking Trump and Musk. Ah, I feel so bad for them. But yeah, no, don't let Pokemon fans cook. They don't know what they're doing. Right? If you want your hardcore, you know, make your Nuzlocke stories, make them more intense. Again, 90% of role-playing is done in a player's head. You want your Pokemon PTSD? Give it to yourself. We got our new rivals. So we found out that the new rivals, the gender of the rival is going to be the opposite of the player. So the rival, the names I don't remember, but I know they're puns on cities, because the girl's name is, I think the girl's name is, no, maybe the guy's name is Urban, and the girl is, so the guy's name is a pun on Urban, and the girl's name is a pun on Townie. So, right, that's kind of the joke with these two rivals' names. I think they're fine. It's interesting that the gender changes the opposite of the player's gender. That, you know, instead of just being, you know, the player's gender, like how it is in most games, you know, they're the to be fair, that's not always the case. X and Y, actually. The main rival was the opposite gender of whichever one the player picked. I think that's true for most Pokemon games. Or at least, you know, Gen 4, definitely Gen 4 and Gen 6. Yeah, definitely those two. And I don't have a problem with that. I've seen some people speculate, you know, one of the features in Scarlet and Violet that was in the game for no real reason was a Persona-style, like, affection meter. There was, like, you could, like, have conversations with players at the academy and build up affection points. And it didn't really do anything, but it was there. So I've seen some people suggest, like, oh, maybe they take that a little bit farther in this new game, and maybe we get romanceable protagonists. And yeah, you know what? Anything's possible. Or, I guess antagonist is what I meant. I don't know, I'd be down for anything. Of course, that won't allow us to have a lesbian romance, but I'm sure the lesbians are doing fine. Cut to a clip of the lesbians melting down. No, I've seriously seen some stuff. And then they showed off the wild zones. So these are basically, you know, a new take on the wild area from Scarlet and Violet. Or from Sword and Shield, I mean. But instead of, you know, the wild area in Sword and Shield was a bunch of little... It was one giant area. This is a bunch of little areas. And you'll be able to go into these little areas. I'm hopeful... Obviously, they haven't showed them all. Like, they've shown off, you know, there's like a little forest. Or there's like a little, like... I'm going to call it forest. There's a little, like, pavilion one. There's a little water one. A little desert one. I hope there are some, like, underground ones. I hope there's, like, a... You know, Lumiose isn't far from a geothermal plant. Give us a volcanic one. I really hope they, like, play around with it a little bit. That they're all not just, like, generic town areas. I hope they get interesting. I hope they get a little bit more complex. I hope they're bigger. Like, I hope they're different sizes, because the one we totally see is Area 1, and the one with the pond in the center. And they're both kind of small, so I do hope they are bigger areas with more to do, that they're not just small little tokens. But I do think there's a good idea in there. I see the evolutions from Legends, or from Sword and Shield. It's not open world, but that's fine. We do see them exploring the city. I pointed out the elevator thing. That, you know, you see the player go onto, like, a teleporter, and you go up to the roof. And people have pointed out to me, yelling at me on TikTok, that yes, teleporters have been in the Pokemon series since Generation 1. And, I mean, fair enough, I guess. I feel like we don't really see them in modern games anymore. But technically, they've been there since... Oh, God. They've been there since Gen 1. So I get that. But wouldn't it be so much cooler if you could, like, parkour around the city? If you could, like, climb the walls, jump across the buildings, like Assassin's Creed style. Wouldn't that be so much fun instead of just teleporting up to the roof? And I do know that, you know, you see the player like jump across a building and like float across on their like phone or whatnot. Let us do that with a Pokemon. That'd be more interesting. But I like the idea of urban exploration. Because Legends Arceus, I actually think the exploration in Legends Arceus is fine. Right? It's not Breath of the Wild levels. Same thing with Scarlet and Violet. It's not Breath of the Wild levels. But I can at least see the potential there for something good. So, you know, I understand the city's limiting. But I'd like to see a little bit more. That'd always be cool. And then finally, the final thing I have is Mega Evolution. I know people were really hopeful they were going to show off a new Mega Evolution. I 100% believe we are getting new Mega Evolutions. How many? I don't think it's as many as people want. If I had to guess, there's going to be, like, at most 10. Which, of course, I want more than... Like, I think all three of our starters are either... All three starters are going to at least get a Mega Evolution or a regional difference. Other than that, I don't really expect many other regional differences, but I hope we get some new Mega Evolutions, because Mega Evolution is just fun. We see how the mechanic has changed, that, you know, because of this new combat system, it's no longer, you know, it goes from, you know, when you first send out the Pokemon. Instead, it's on a timer, which I feel like is a good balance to things. In theory, it prevents it from being OP. But no, I like the Mega Evolutions. We know some, you know, we know Pokemon we know back. Both Charizards, Gardevoir, Ampharos, Sableye, Gyarados. Presumably every Mega Evolution is back. The only ones I'd maybe even kind of question is the Gen 3 legendaries. Because, like, Rayquaza doesn't need a stone. But, you know, Groudon and Kyogre don't use a Mega Stone. They use the blue and red spheres, or whatever they're called. So that maybe be the one hesitation. But other than that, I fully expect, you know, all three starters to have a Mega Evolution. I'd be amazed if Zygarde doesn't have a Mega Evolution. That one I fully expect. I'd love for the other two to have Mega Evolutions as well. I will say, even though I love the Gen 3 starter, the Gen 3 Legends. The Gen 3 Legendaries, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza are my favorite Legendaries. The Gen 6 Legendaries are my second favorite. Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, I think are all really cool. I even like Big Chunky Zygarde. Snake Zygarde is cool, but I also do like Big Chunky Hunter Zygarde. And Dog Zygarde's fine. So yeah, you know, if all three of them got Megas, that'd be cool. I just like them, man. What else can I say? I think they're neat. And then, so the battling system, I noticed this at the time, and yeah, basically from what we've seen, you know, what people have looked at, the battling system it's still, you know, it has elements of turn-based combat, but now position matters. There's timers that charge up for moves. So, you know, you kind of have to wait for moves to charge. And then they have, like, certain areas of effect, you know, kind of like D&D spells. And honestly, it looks like Xenoblade. And I'm not the only person to point this out. I've seen other people point out, yeah, the combat is now like Xenoblade. And guess what? I think that's fantastic. As a #1 Xenoblade Chronicles enjoyer, the idea of a Pokemon game having Xenoblade combat sounds fantastic. So yes, I am 100% on board with this. I think this is a good evolution of Pokemon combat. I think it sounds fun. I think it sounds interesting. The catching mechanic seems to be brought back from Legends Arceus, and I loved the catching mechanic in Legends Arceus. I think it's so much more interesting than what Scarlet and Violet did. Honestly, if every Pokemon game played more like Legends Arceus than Scarlet and Violet, I would have no issue with that. And now that they're making a dedicated battling game, maybe more Pokemon games will play like Legends Arceus. Maybe Gen 10 will be more like Legends Arceus than Scarlet and Violet, or, you know, maybe it'll find the middle ground between the two. Somewheres, and it is my humble opinion, that somewheres between Scarlet and Violet in Legends Arceus is the perfect Pokemon game. Combine the two games, have a more unique art style, and you've got the perfect Pokemon game. It's just a question of, will they do it? But yeah, everything I see so far, the final part, I know there's like that whole thing about like you've been invited to participate. People are questioning what that final clip is. The theory I like is the battle tower. That the tower at the center of Kalos, you know, it used to be a gym. In Gen 6, it's a gym. What if they turn it into the battle tower? And we get the battle tournament from previous Pokemon games? What if they bring back Gen 5's Pokemon Battle Championship thing? I can't remember what it's actually called. And you know, we fight previous champions, we fight previous gym leaders. Because if we're not leaving Lumio City, maybe the people from outside Lumio City are coming to us. I don't hate that idea, especially if the new combat is fun, which I think, again, if you're doing Xenoblade combat is good. So if you're doing that, I honestly think the idea of a battle tower sounds like a good idea. As long as it's interesting, you know, they play around with the terrain, they play around with the environment, you know, you get some real challenges in there. It's different enough. I feel like there's a lot of potential there. So yeah, overall, I like what we've seen of Legends Arceus, or Legends ZA. God, I'm so bad with names. I'm so bad with names. I know that's always been true, but ugh. I like what we've seen of Legends ZA. I feel like people are talking about how this game's like dog water, how it's going to be garbage, and I think they're writing it off way too soon. Especially, like, how can you write this game off without ever even playing it? Like, I'd understand if, like, you know, once reviews start coming out and people start writing it off. Like, if you don't care for it, then just don't play it. But at this point, it's way too fucking early to write it off. I think Pokemon fans are just way too cunty, right? Gluttons who are not satisfied with all the riches of heaven. And even though, to be fair, they usually don't get the riches of heaven. But, you know, that's what they want. And they'll never reasonably get that. But yeah, I'm satisfied. The release date is late 2025. I definitely think this has something to do with the Switch 2. That the game is going to be playable on Switch in Switch 2. I hope there is like a Switch 2 patch that makes it run a little better. Because presumably this game's at best going to run at 30 frames per second. Because, you know, Scarlet and Violet do not have consistent frame rates. Most of the time it's not an issue for me, but then you go up to the lake area and it's like, oh my god, this game is chugging. Right? Like, a lot of, like, I hear people complain about, like, the frame rate in Link's Awakening, and it's never really been an issue for me. I don't really notice it. But then I play Scarlet and Violet, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. This sucks. But I hope, you know, them taking a year off, having the Switch 2 under their belt, even though it's going to come out on both, obviously. I hope there's something good here. And yeah, so that was the Pokemon Direct. It was fine. The one big thing I still want is give me those Gen 3 games again. It has been so... Because you got Gen 1 and Gen 2 on Switch, on DS, or 3DS. Why didn't we get Gen 3 on Switch? Like, that would have made perfect sense. Or even if we had just gotten, like, Pokemon Pinball. Where's Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire on Nintendo Switch Online? People fucking love that game. I love that game. I would love for them to have brought Pokemon Pinball back. You know, not that I haven't been playing it on Game Boy, mind you. Because, yeah, I still can, but... You know, it'd be cool to have on Switch Online as well. I guess that's another reason for me to go back and complete it. Even though I've never completed it in the first place. You know, give us the e-reader. Make it so that way, you know, in the Switch version, you can get the Gen 2 starters in Aerodactyl. Make that a thing that you can actually do. That'd be cool. But yeah, it was a fine Pokemon Presents. You know, I know people wanted black and white. It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And even on the small chance it did, they're going to be made by Studio Ilka. And they're going to look like the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Do you really want that? I know you don't. Stop asking for black and white remakes. Stop asking for all the riches of heaven. You're only going to find hell along the way. Yeah, and I'd much rather. Honestly, I know people want to if they're really gonna do a third Legends game, you know, that uses the starters they haven't used from the 2 generations they haven't done. I actually kind of want third Legends game, instead of doing Legends Kyurem, call it Legends Black and White 3. Right? I feel like that's way more interesting. And now that Pokemon's, you know, getting ready to be experimental, which I know Arceus and ZA aren't super experimental, but from what the Pokemon Company traditionally does, oh yeah, they're loads more experimental than anything the Pokemon Company has ever done. So, I thought it was fine. You know, did it suck having to wake up an hour early for the show? You know, more than I normally do, and having to rush to work afterwards. Yeah, kind of, but, you know, we got a Switch Direct, and I'm going to have to do the same thing in like a month. Alright, so that takes us to WIBE. What have I been doing? What have I been playing? Well, let's start off, you know, I mentioned Pokemon Card Pack like half an hour ago. Guess what? It has been half an hour. I do have a Pokemon Card Pack to open. So let's open a pack of Triumphant Light. I'll just kind of tell you what I got. I got a Gabite, a Kurogunk, a Meryl, a Berry Trainer card, and an Adamant Trainer card. Okay. Can I be honest? I find Trainer and Support cards kind of rare in these games. I only got, so they gave away 3 like promo packs, and that was the first time I ever got a Blaine card, because I didn't have one before this, which is kind of wild to think about. Yeah. Alright, let's do a Wonder Pick. I'm just gonna literally do just a 1-star first pack I see. I got a Noctowl! Ooh, cool. Yay. Now I'm up to 12 cards. Oh my god, there's a I'm looking through some of the other Wonder Picks. There's a Krogonk full art that looks like it's being picked out of a claw machine. That's awesome. Ooh, there's the Rotom card. Ooh. That's a neat looking Rotom. I like Rotom. That's a Pokemon I wish they'd get. You know, they have the 5 forms with it. I wish they have done more forms. I feel like there's so much potential for new Rotoms. Same thing with Eevee. I feel like there is so much potential for new Eevees. And they just never did anything after Gen 7. Or Gen 6, I mean. And I feel like part of it might be fans' fault. Because I know if a fan version of a Pokemon exists, the Pokemon Company legally can't make anything like that out of copyright infringement, even though, again, they own Pokemon and whatnot. It's kind of confusing when you think about it, but somebody explained it that, like, the Pokemon Company, basically, if you want a fan in Pokemon to exist, you should stop drawing it, because then the Pokemon Company is less likely to make it. Which I know seems counterintuitive, but I guess that's how it works. I don't remember who explained that at some point, but somebody did. So for WIBE, we got 2 food things. Both desserts. We got Taco Bell has new churros, which I did try. I did not try the Crunch Wraps. Today they released mini Crunch Wraps. I have not tried those, but I tried the churros like last week. So we will talk about those. And then Wendy's has a new Frosty, which is a Thin Mint Frosty, so we'll talk about that. I have a game to talk about. I've been playing a game, But then my mother, who I feel like we haven't talked about in a while, you know, because, you know, she took some time off from games, and only recently did she get back into things. She's been playing Splatoon. So she beat the main campaign of Splatoon 2, what, like, yesterday? 2 days ago? No, it must have been yesterday. So I do want to talk about that, her experience. And then I've got a bunch of TV stuff. Solar Opposites. Solar Opposites Season 5 came out back in, like, October, and I just didn't watch it. But I've been kind of working on it, like, silently for the past, like, 2 weeks. So I want to talk about that. Win or Lose has its next 2 episodes, which I want to talk about. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I have now finished the show, so we're going to talk about that. I've been kind of in a Spider-Man mood, so I've been watching Ultimate Spider-Man. You know, I think it was like 2012 to 2014 show. And oh boys, everything everybody says about that one correct. And then of course Moon Girl. We'll end off with Moon Girl. You know, hopefully all of that stuff will take us the next, like, hour and a half. Hopefully. Because I still think we've got an hour and a half until we beat this game. Because some of these levels are kicking my ass. Especially when I'm playing like this. So yeah, and you know, if there's any... did I say Invincible? I think I saw episode 3 of Invincible. So yeah. I don't think we talked about Invincible episode 3 last week. I don't remember. If I have to talk about it again, I'll talk about it again. It's no big deal. So let's start off with Taco Bell. So Taco Bell, for, you know, their anniversary is right around now. And, you know, they have their big Live Moss Presents next week. You know, basically they do a Taco Bell, like, you know, direct, like a big Taco Bell showcase. And Taco Bell will actually be in the news next week. Yeah, you know, instead of being in the, you know, the food part of the WIBE, it'll be in the news part of the WIBE, which doesn't happen that often. I mean, I think that's on, like, it's either on the 4th, the 5th, or the 6th. I don't remember. But we will talk about that next week. But yeah, so for their birthday, they did churros. Taco Bell has never done churros before, at least not recently. And so I was like, oh, a churro, that sounds like a fun idea. It's got a birthday cake filling, and it's covered with, like, these pink sprinkles that stained my fingers pink. And honestly, they're okay. I think the churros are fine. I know it's not Taco Bell who's making the churros. They come from another company that I'm looking up right now. But it's not Taco Bell making the churros. It's a different place. But any Crunch Wraps? Milk Bar. They're called Milk Bar. They're the ones making the churros. And honestly, I think they're fine. My problem is the birthday cake flavor. I feel like the birthday cake flavor and all the pink sprinkles and whatnot, it's just a little too much. I kind of wish, like, if these had just been, like, chocolate filled, like if they had, like, a chocolate filling instead of a birthday cake filling, I would have probably liked them a lot more. But they're not you know, I think this is a limited time release. These aren't going to be available. I'd be amazed if they're available by, like, this time next week. But I think they were fine. Would I recommend you go out and get them? If that new crunch, they have mini Crunch Wraps, where I think it's 2 mini Crunch Wraps, and they have, like, steak and pico de gallo. If those are good, which, you know, go look at somebody else for that. If those are good, then I'd say, yeah, you know, you might as well pick up one of these. I think they're like $2 or $3 per churro. Yeah, they're $2 per churro, or you can get 2 for $3.40. And yeah, they're fine. But other than that, right, they're nothing I'd really go out of my way for. Yeah. Now, the next thing is the Wendy's Frosty. So, Wendy's, this is not a new flavor of Frosty. Like, you know, recently they did, like, Dreamsicle. They did, what was the other one? They did Pineapple. Well, Pineapple was kind of like this. What was the other one they did? They did Dreamsicle. I don't think they did a mint one. They did Strawberry. Maybe, let's go with that. Right, so Wendy's has... Oh, Caramel. Caramel's the one I was looking for. They've done some other flavors of Frosties. This one is not a new flavor, but instead it's more like the pineapple one, where it's a new filling. It's like a filling you can get in, like a chocolate. Instead of it being like a mint chocolate chip Frosty, it's got like a mint chocolate chip sauce on it. You know, this is something that Wendy's has actually been doing in other countries for a while now, but they only brought it to the US last year with the SpongeBob crossover. And honestly, I think they're pretty decent. I know people see vanilla as like the boring generic flavor, but honestly, and I kind of see that as well. That's kind of how I view it, even though it's definitely not by like technical standards. But I think the idea of a vanilla Frosty with like a chocolate drizzle, which is what I got, is actually pretty decent. I actually did enjoy this Wendy's Frosty. Would I recommend it over, to go out of your way to get this? No, probably not. If you like Thin Mints, definitely. I do totally think this tasted like a Thin Mint. So if you like Thin Mints, yeah, you're gonna have a good time with this one. But as someone who, I'm more of like a Samoa guy. Are they still called Samoas? I don't know. I like Samoas more. Let's just go with that. I think this was a fine Frosty. I've had better, I've had worse, It was perfectly okay. And I hope they continue to do these, like, I'm gonna call them drizzled Frosties, for lack of a better word. Shit. Oh, that's on a game mode. Huh. Yeah, I hope they keep doing these drizzled Frosties in the future. I feel like these have a lot of potential. Again, they've been doing them in other regions for a long time. But I think doing them more in the US would be a good idea. Because, yeah, this was fine. Would I get this again if I go to Wendy's? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't really get Frosties at Wendy's, I'll be honest. I used to. I'm one of those, Frosty and fries people. I think that's a perfectly acceptable thing, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. It's the same principle behind, like, a chocolate-covered pretzel. And I think those are really good. Yeah, it was fine. Both the food things, both the dessert things were fine. I didn't try anything else. I know next week Burger King has like a new burger, like a steakhouse burger or something. And I actually do kind of want Burger King, which is weird because, I don't know. I don't really care for Burger King, but every like 1 in 10 times they hit. And the last time I had them, or maybe it was 2 times ago, whatever, at some point they did hit. And now I'm kind of like, yeah, I could go for them again. Just to inevitably be disappointed and not have them again for like a year. Yeah, but so that might be on next week. So when it comes to games, the one game I played this week was The Witness. But why did this come up? I'll tell you exactly why I was thinking about it. So Kinda Funny is doing a thing to celebrate their 10-year anniversary. They're doing their top 100 games. Now, that has not started yet, and at least as far as I know, it hasn't started yet, and I don't know when they're doing that. But I was watching a Kinda Funny podcast or something, and they like offhandedly mentioned it or something like that, and it got me thinking about my own top 100 games. And I was like, what would be my 100th favorite game of all time? And for some reason, the first thing that came to my head was The Witness. If you do not know, The Witness is a game made by Jonathan Blow. I think it's Jonathan Blow. The guy who made Braid. And it's a game that took him years and years. And it's a puzzle game. It looks a lot simpler. It looks simpler than it is. It's this big world to explore. You can tackle, there's different puzzles you have to solve to light these lasers. In order to beat the game, you need to light, I think, 7 lasers, but there's like 10 of them you can do. And you can basically do them in any order, however you want. It's super straightforward game. But The Witness is a lot of fun. Sometimes it can be really frustrating. But I was like, yeah, I like The Witness. I think Pirate Software also played it recently, which is also, I might have seen that, even though I do not watch him, because we fundamentally disagree on some things. But I think I might have also seen that on Reddit, and that might be why I thought of it as my 100th favorite game. But yeah, I was thinking about The Witness, and then I was like, Is The Witness on Switch? I swear I've seen it on the eShop before. So I looked it up, and sure enough, The Witness is not on Switch. Braid is on Switch, because, you know, they re-released Braid last year, and I still have not played it, even though I've never actually played Braid, and I do really want to. Yeah, and I didn't get around to it last year. I was waiting, I was, like, patiently waiting for it to come out last year. Because it felt like it took forever to come out last year. And by the time it finally did, I didn't play it. I'm awful. I know. But, I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, you know, maybe I'll, you know, if it's on Switch, maybe I'll buy it on Switch and play it. It's not on Switch. And, like, I know, I want to say in, like, 2018, Jonathan Blow, because I looked it up, and he was like, oh yeah, you know, maybe we'll bring it to Switch, but it probably won't be a thing. And I was really surprised, because I think that game would make a lot of sense on Switch. You know, because sometimes The Witness is designed in such a way where it's like, if you get frustrated or stuck on a puzzle, you can just kind of go away, go to something else, and then come back later and maybe, you know, with a fresh mind. And I think the game's good at that, and I feel like that would work really well on the Switch. So, like, in 2018, I get it. But we're, what, 6 years removed from that? How did The Witness never come to Switch? And then my second thought after that was like, what the fuck has Jonathan Blow been working on since then? Because The Witness was 2016. What the fuck has he been working on? And yeah, nothing. I mean, I think he's been working with like another studio, and they've got a game that's potentially releasing later this year, if not next year. But yeah, no, he hasn't made any major new game or anything like that since then. And I want to say the time, it's been, what? Has it been, it might have potentially been more time between The Witness and today than it was between The Witness and Braid. Because I think Braid came out in 2008, and The Witness came out in 2016. Whereas we are now over 8 years since The Witness came out. Because I want to say The Witness is... Because the first time I played The Witness was Spring Break 2016. It was Spring Break, and I played it over like 2 or 3 days in Spring Break. Because I think it came out in January. And I played it later that year. And I really enjoyed it. And then there's I don't want to spoil anything about The Witness if you've never played it. But there's you know, after you play The Witness, you start to witness things. And I remember coming back to school after spring break, and I was noticing it everywhere. Like, everywhere I look, I would witness it. And I was just like, wait, what? Oh my gosh. Because I remember not really liking the ending to The Witness, if you know what I'm talking about. Which, booting up the game again, that was the first thing I fucking did. I was like, oh wait, isn't there a secret here? Oh shit, that's the hotel. That's the end credits. Never mind. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Because yeah, that was the first thing I remembered about the game. Having, again, not played it in 8 years. I am playing it on PS5. There's not a PS5 version, there's a PS4 version. But, you know, they gave it away for free on PS Plus years ago. So I was just like, yeah, I'll boot it up on PS5, no issue. And yeah, it runs fine on PS5. But you gotta keep it in 60 frames per second. You know, usually I'm not a frame rate guy, but I bumped the game down to 30 frames per second just to see how, like, good it looked in 4K. Oh my god, that was a bad idea. The choppiness, I totally noticed the choppiness of 30 frames. Like, that, you know what, that's a good, you know, benchmarker, you could say. So yeah, overall, what worlds have I done? I did the dock area, you know, with the palm trees and whatnot. I did the desert area, where you have to do the reflections. I did the tree area, where you have to go based on shadows and, like, the autumn trees. I did that. I did the color area, where you have to do all the different colors. And then I tried to get into the woodworks. I think that's what it is. It's like either a woodwork or a stonework. The quarry, maybe. And I could not remember the block puzzle. Because those were always my biggest struggles in that game, were the block puzzles. So I couldn't get in there. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'll go over to the swamp and learn how to do the block puzzles again. Of course, I'm still in the where I left off. I was in the middle of the swamp. Admittedly, I have not gone back and done the block puzzle to get into the quarry, even though I do now know the solution. Like, literally, when I halfway through working through the swamp levels with the blocks, I remembered, like, oh shit, that's the solution. Okay, I figured out what I was doing wrong, and I just haven't gone back and done it. But I eventually got to a puzzle in the swamp that really, like, tricked me up, and I was like, okay, I need to put because I did this all in, like, one night. And I was like, okay, I need to put this down. I'll come back to this tomorrow. And that was like yesterday, and maybe that was 2 days ago, and I just haven't come back to it. But you know, it's The Witness. I do still like it. Is it my 100th favorite game of all time? I don't know, maybe. You know, I said for this show's 10-year anniversary, we'll do my 100 favorite games. But that's still like 2 or 3 years away, so... You know, maybe we'll see in like 2 or 3 years. Oh, how much of that was recording? I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, I like The Witness, you know, whatever. So, like I said, so my mother, right, last year she played a bunch of Zelda games. She played Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword, Echoes of Wisdom. So going into this year, it's like, okay, well, what does she play next? Me being a Pikmin fan, my first thought is Pikmin. But I'm kind of trying to chip away at her to convince her to come over and play Pikmin on stream. I think that'd be very funny. But, you know, I'm working on that. So I haven't gotten that done. But instead I was like, you know what? I know I'd also talked Fire Emblem. Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about Fire Emblem. That's the thing. So I was like, let's do Splatoon. You know, they're basically just Mario games, and she's beaten Mario Odyssey. At least I think she has. So I was like, fuck it, let's just do Mario. Let's just do Splatoon. So I was like, you know what, don't even worry about Splatoon 1. Here's like an 8-minute YouTube video explaining the plot of Splatoon 1. Boom, that's all you need to know. Let's do Splatoon 2. So she's been working on it for, you know, basically the entire month. And she started off and, you know, she was, you know, her big thing is the camera. She really, this was true in Breath of the Wild, in Tears of the Kingdom. She really struggles with the camera. And I definitely think Splatoon's making her a little better. Like, you know, being able to, like, because, you know, in those Zelda games, you have a lock-on button. You don't have that in Splatoon. So I definitely feel like, you know, she's learning to less lie on it and actually use a camera. At least that's the hope anyways. We'll see. But she got through the first few levels, and then she got to the first world boss, the Octo Oven. The Octo Oven kicked her ass. She really struggled on the Octo Oven. It took her like 2 days. And, you know, I'm like, okay, let me show you how this works. I do it. I basically get to the point where I can kill the boss in like 2 minutes. And she's just like, that's unfair. That's so unfair. Oh, do I have to do this the hard way? So, okay, I do all that. So she does all that. She struggles with the Octo Oven. Now, here's the thing about her playing through most of this game. Is, you know, the average level in, like, a Splatoon game, it takes, like, I don't know, let's say, like, anywhere between, like, 4 to 6 minutes to beat. If you know what you're doing, you can beat most levels in, like, at most, like, 10 minutes. For someone who knows what they're doing. For her, she takes her sweet time on levels, and so levels take her 30 minutes. Even just, like, a simple level where she, you know, she's dying a lot. Whenever you die 3 times, you have to restart the whole level. But even on levels where she's not dying that much, it still takes her at least, like, 30 minutes per level. Some levels have taken her over an hour to beat. her biggest struggle in the game is the squeegees. You know, some of them are big, some of them are small, but you know, they erase your ink as you go. I don't know if they're actually called squeegees, but I think they're called squeegees. And there are the big squeegees that you have to ride. They only appear in like 3 or 4 levels. All of the squeegee levels, she struggled with so much. She cannot ride the squeegees. I had to do one of them for her. Because she could do everything in a vacuum, but she just couldn't do the squeegees. The squeegees just like broke her. She could get up to them every time, but she struggled jumping on them, she struggled beating them. It was a whole thing. But yeah, so like World 5, the Octo Bowler level. In the squeegee, there's one with invisible ink in the squeegees. Each of those levels took her over an hour. She basically spent an entire day just playing, because she only plays for like an hour or 2 a day. She basically spent an entire day on just those 2 levels. She really struggled. And then other parts she does perfectly fine. Like, so she struggled with the Octo of it. So going into the second boss, I was like, oh no, this is going to be a struggle. Beats it on her first try. Doesn't mean she didn't die. She died like twice. Like, not game over. But like, you know, you have 3 lives per level until you have to restart. She beat it without a single restart. She died twice, but she didn't have to restart. So I was blown away by that. World 3's boss is the Octo Stamp, the Neo Octo Stamp. She beats it on her first try. What? World 4's boss is the Shower, the Octo Shower. Again, she beats it on her first try. You know, she was struggling all these much with the games. She struggled so much with the first boss. But then from there on out, nope. All the bosses were a piece of cake. Except for the final boss. So this is where she's been working on the final boss all week. And she's been struggling with it. You know, the whole dodging the punches and whatnot. She can, basically after like the first day, she was consistently able to get through the first 2 phases. But she just could not get through that final phase. Now, historically, from what I remember, people actually don't like the final boss of Splatoon 2. Half the reason is that it's an inferior boss to the final boss of Splatoon 1. Right? This final boss of Splatoon 1 is way more interesting, whereas the Splatoon 2 version's pretty simple. I know that's half the reason, but I thought the other half was that the Splatoon 2 boss was considered too easy. That, you know, people consider the DJ Octavio in Splatoon 2 to be too easy of a boss fight. No, it was not for her. Every other boss, yeah, except for the first one. But no, she struggled with the Splatoon 2. The final boss of Splatoon 2. I went in and helped her, and I beat the first boss of the game. Like, I basically speedran it a bunch of times, so that way she could get some upgrades. Because she also really struggles to get eggs. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe she's not breaking every box. I don't know what she's doing. She got almost no sunken scrolls. I think she beat the game with like 5 of like 28. But yeah, she just really struggled to get any upgrades. So I went in and helped her get the last one. But yeah, no, she beat DJ Octavio, got to the final form with the Rainmaker, and then died. She's the only person I've ever seen die on the final form with the Rainmaker and have to restart the whole boss. Because as far as you know how like at the end of Breath of the Wild, you basically have this point where it's like, oh, you know, you have to fight Pig Ganon, but it's like super easy because it's supposed to be like a victory lap. That's how I think of the final part of the Octavio boss fight with the Killer Whale. But no, she struggled with that. She beat it, I think, on her second try. The first time she got to it, she lost, because I think she only had like 1 or 2 lives. But the second time she went in with all 3 lives, took her all 3 lives, but she did do it. She eventually... The timing for the jumps to dodge the fists is super generous. So she, you know, she got good at dodging, was able to go in, beat DJ Octavio, and as far as she knew, she was beating the game. And then I was like, oh, surprise, surprise, you're actually only halfway there. You now have to start the Octo expansion. So I threw her into the Octo expansion. She starts the game, there's a part because she only has the Octo expansion because of Nintendo Switch Online. And every time she boots up the game, it gives her like an error message about like, oh, delete unneeded software. And I've always kind of been confused at what that is. I've always assumed it's talking about the Octo expansion. So I was really, so there was a part of me that didn't even know if the Octo expansion was going to work for her, or if you did have, because again, she's using my old Switch. So I was like, oh, do I have to delete it and then re-download it? And then she boots it up, it loads fine. And then she leaves the train station, the game crashes. The data was corrupted. So she had to uninstall, re-download everything, and now it's all working. So now she's in the Octo expansion. She just did her first 8-ball level, and she hated it. You know, it's 8-ball. What do you expect? But yeah, I pulled a plot twist on her without telling her the Octo expansion was coming. I've also been having her do online battles, you know, Chugga Conroy style, where after, you know, and it's not after every level, but basically at the end of every play session, I'm like, oh yeah, go in, you know, do an online battle, and, you know, the hope is to at least get her to level 10 by the time she beats the Octo expansion, so that way in the new game, you know, she'll have everything unlocked at launch. Because I think you have to be at least level 10 to unlock everything at launch in the third game, just automatically. Wow, we're already at the final boss? Holy shit, we might actually beat this a lot quicker than I thought we were going to. Huh. I'll figure out what we do afterwards. But yeah, so she's done some online battles. She's actually doing okay. She's only been doing turf war because she's not level 10. She's level 7 currently. Because I've been having her use XP boosters that you get in the story mode. She's level 7. She's doing okay. She likes the dualies a lot. Like, that's her primary weapon is the dualies. She doesn't get that many kills. She's mostly focused on inking turf. But, you know, she's doing fine. She's making good progress. So, yeah, that's kind of where she's at. So I'll have to keep you guys updated. But, yeah. Alright. We're actually maybe running out of time. Did I overtime this? Oh, shit. Maybe we'll save Spider-Man for next week. Maybe I'll just kind of skip over that one. Let's talk Solar Opposites. So, Solar Opposites is the show, you know, it was created by Justin Roiland, you know, the Rick and Morty guy. He left the show in season 4 because of all the allegations. They got a new voice actor for Corvo, and, you know, the show's been fine. You know, it's an okay show. The A plots and the B plots are all usually okay. But what everyone loves about Solar Opposites is the C plot. There's a C plot called The Wall. And every season, you know, they build up, they do like a few small bits, and then The Wall gets its own episode, and it's like the best part of the show because The Wall is interesting, it's dramatic. Did it kind of jump the shark in season 3? Yeah, and since then, you know, they've kind of reinvented themselves as the backyard, and it's been okay since then. But yeah, I like the idea. The Wall is fun. There is a D plot, because for some reason, even though they have The Wall, which people love, they had the idea to create a D-plot called the Silver Cops. I do not give a shit about the Silver Cops. There was a Silver Cops episode this season, and I could give less of a shit about the Silver Cops. There might have even been like 2, or at least an episode and a half. I don't need the Silver Cops stuff. I don't care about the Silver Cops fighting My Little Pony. Who gives a shit? It's not as interesting as it sounds. But so the main plot is Corvo and Terry, and, you know, they're raising the pupa, they've got the kids. Where we left off last season, you know, they went off into space to run away or whatever because they were turning into humans. Now they come back and everything's okay. And they start off the season, well, they spend an entire episode on the other planet, and that's all fun and good. But eventually, you know, shenanigans happen, conspiracy theories are unraveled, and they have to come back to Earth. And then they're talking, and it's like, oh, Corvo and Terry are married. And I was like, that makes sense, because I remember in season 4, they leaned a lot more into the fact that Corvo and Terry were, like, romantically involved. Like, I actually liked the show more for leaning into that. Right now that Justin's gone, they play around more with the fact that they're romantically interested in each other. So I was like, okay, you know, they probably got married last season, and I didn't remember it. Turns out there was a Valentine's Day episode I missed, where they actually did a whole wedding. They basically had they did a Phineas and Ferb episode where they got rid of love, and then they realized that kind of destroyed the world. So, you know, Corvo and Terry got married to bring love back. You know, very Phineas and Ferb style. You know, very Dr. Doofenshmirtz. And yeah, you know, I did go and watch their wedding episode, and yeah, it was cute. I do think they work well as a married couple. You know, there's an entire episode about them going on a honeymoon together, and they, you know, extend the span of a week just so that way their honeymoon can last a little longer. That was, you know, a good, fun idea. I liked that. What other episodes? Let me pull up an episode list real quick. The backyard part of the episode. So they're in the backyard, and basically the villain of the backyard is trying to control water. And they've stolen all 3 of the water spigots, or at least 2 of them. And so the characters have to, like, transport the last one. They end up meeting Sherry, and, like, Sherry doesn't want to get involved in the politics of the backyard, but eventually they bring her into the fold. And the episode ends on a great note with, like, Sherry basically being like, you know, I've tried to stay out of politics. When people asked me to rule the backyard, I said no. But clearly I can't leave you people alone. So I'm declaring myself queen. And that's fucking great. That was a great moment in the backyard. But the other backyard stuff, it was all okay. Let me see. Other season 5 episodes. Oh, they do a whole... So they do... You know how, like, Futurama has, like, its what-if episodes? Where it's like, oh, you know, what if Fry didn't go back in time and whatnot? They basically... They set up like they're going to do a what-if episode, but then they revealed that the entire show has been taking place in a what-if episode. That basically Corvo wasn't the original leader of the mission, but somebody else was. And he pressed the what-if button to see what if Corvo was the leader and how they'd, like, fuck everything up. But they never unpressed the button. So they spend an entire episode fighting about whether they're going to unpress the button, because they don't remember this other guy. And the reveal that, you know, Corvo thinks he pressed the button, and that he doesn't want to unpress it because that means, you know, him and Terry might not have fallen in love and all this other stuff. It's like, that was really interesting. And of course the reveal that this other guy is still alive and now he's going to come for them seeking revenge. And that's basically how the season, like, cliffhangs. Yeah, no, that was all good. I think instead of doing a traditional what if episode, the idea that this entire show has been living in a what if episode, but they don't, like, undo it at the end, like, the what if is now the canon, is, I think, a good idea. I honestly think that episode worked out pretty well in the end. They do one where they, you know, try to create a time loop, and Terry doesn't die, and because they have to, like, kill themselves at the end of the time loop, but Terry refuses, and instead it goes on this whole cascade, and it ends up with him, like, fucking, like, he basically gets kidnapped and stuck in someone's, you know, naked puzzle basement, but he eventually escapes, goes to Home Depot, figures out the secret, and yeah, all's well that ends well. There's an episode where they create a school that I don't really remember. They create a private school, all the kids turn evil, whatever. Jesse's ex-boyfriends come back to get revenge. Again, another whatever episode. Oh, they do a Coyote and Roadrunner cartoon. They do a Looney Tunes cartoon episode where some guy beats up Jesse and Jesse and Yumulak, and is like, my dad can beat up your dad. So Corvo starts going to try to beat up this guy's dad, but it turns out this guy has been, like, trained since birth to, like, defend against people, and, like, it's a whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing. But the entire thing is, like, no audio. It's all, like, sound effects, no talking. And, yeah, you know, it was kind of fun. And I love the twist at the end, where the entire point, like, the kids were actually putting the dads against each other to distract them so that way the kids can go to Monster Jam. I actually really liked that twist at the end, that they were being played the whole time. So, yeah. There's an episode with the pupa where they fight a mist thing. I don't really remember it. That's, I think, the backyard one. The What If device, we talked about that one. The Silver Cops one, I don't care about. Yeah, the backyard one. And then the season finale, they reveal that basically, as part of the mission, every 6 months they have to kill Yumulak and feed him to the pupa. But then they discover that, oh no, you can actually just feed the pupas chalupas after Yumulak basically permanently dies. And they have to go find Irish Yumulak? I think it's actually Irish Yumulak. It's a whole thing. I think it was a fine season finale. And yeah, and then of course it ends with like the whole thing of like, oh, you know, this guy, their original team leader is coming for them. I liked it. I think it was nothing too amazing, but it was a perfect... Solar Opposites is not an amazing show. It is a perfectly fine show that is just entertaining enough as long as they stop doing less Silver Cup stuff. And yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I think, based on what's going on, I think they've got at least one more season in them. I feel like they can get one more season out of the backyard. I feel like, you know, with the main crew, they can get another season, especially with this guy coming back. The Silver Cops introduced Gold Cops, which is clearly the end goal. I think there's one more season. If there's more than that, there's more than that. You know, Rick and Morty's going to go on for 100 years. And while I don't think the show needs to go on for 100 years, and it'll eventually just, you know, it'll become The Simpsons like everything else, I think it was fine what it was. Win or Lose, we got 2 new episodes of Win or Lose. The first one was all about the girl. There's one of the girls whose name I don't remember. Let me look it up. Win or Lose. Rochelle. So the Rochelle, and she's, you know, she's all about getting money. Because you know, you have to pay to play softball. And her family, you know, they're not rich. So she has to go get money. And, you know, she works at the snack bar and everything. Then she finds out fees are going up next year. And even though she thought she had enough, now she doesn't. So she starts helping kids cheat and, you know, get paid for it. And that's the hope that, like, oh, you know, by getting paid, she'll eventually make enough money for softball. That's the idea. We've seen it, right? We saw her try to, like, cheat in one of the previous ones. So we find out more about that. We have a great moment in here. So her mom is an influencer. Right? Like one of those, like, she's not like, she doesn't use her, like, daughter for content that much. She does at least once in the episode. And I'll be honest, I really hated the mom. The mom's name is Vanessa. And I really hated the mom in this episode. Specifically because she was a social media influencer. You know, she gives her kid new cleats. And she posts it on social media. And then, you know, she quits her job and wants to become full-time social media. And I really didn't like the mom in this episode. I was like, ugh. I really did not like her. So that was kind of driving me crazy. But, you know, at the end, the kid, she wants to sell the cleats her mom gifted her. She goes to a party. Turns out the people at the party are just trying to steal her keys to the snack bar, to steal from the snack bar. And she tells them no. She runs away from the party. And the episode ends with her just being, like, lost in the middle of nowheres, far away from the game, calling her mom, desperately hoping she picks up. That was really good. I think that's a good ending. And then we get a perspective from the mom. And I was kind of worried about that, because, again, I didn't like the mom based on the previous episode. And it's interesting, like, how I think these 2 episodes are good together. Because I like the different perspectives. I like how we see the same scenes from different perspectives. And, like, Rochelle, when, you know, it's in her perspective, she's panicked, she's stressed out, she's worried about all these things. But then when the mom's perspective, she seems perfectly fine. Like, if you just watch the mom's perspective, you would understand, right? It wouldn't make it, like, it'd be a completely different character. And yeah, in the mom's perspective, you see a lot more of her struggle. You see how she didn't quit her job, she got fired. her struggles with her daughter, because we've seen in the second episode we see Vanessa go to the school and tell off the teacher, and then we see like her perspective where she finds out that yes, her daughter was cheating, and you know, she snoops through her phone. I love the moment directly after when she goes to the school and like the PTA members are there and they like accost her and they're like, oh, you single mom, and that was all really good. Yeah, no, talk about a character who like I hated in the previous episode. And yeah, the social media thing, yeah, it's there. Like, she's, she's getting encouragement from her followers and whatnot. They're like these little bubbles that follow her around. But it's not nearly as invasive as the previous episode made it seem. And yeah, I think it's all really good. She goes to the party. They talk about, whether or not she's a good mom. And some of the other girls at the party are like, hey, you're here. You care about your daughter. My parents don't. So, putting it into perspective, how much she's struggling, like, because she doesn't, like, the kid has her own room, presumably, but she's just sleeping on the couch, because, they're struggling for money. I get that. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think they did, again, it's Pixar. They do a good job. I love the animation in this show. It can be really creative when it wants to be. So, I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's Pixar, and it is definitely all leading towards something that I think the show's only 8 episodes, so I don't know, like, when does the other shoe drop? Does it drop in episode 7 or 8? Or is there a 9th episode, is it all episode 9? Are they going to be able to wrap up all these storylines in, 22 minutes or whatever? I hope they can. But yeah, so far I've been enjoying Win or Lose. Invincible season, episode, whatever. So I think last time we talked season, I'm behind right now. I think I'm 3 episodes behind. Because on the first day the show came out, they released 3 episodes. So I've been doing 1 episode a week, but, I'm always behind. So episode 3 is the one where Oliver finally gets his suit, and, he wants to be Kid Omni-Man. It's cool seeing Mark Hamill again, I like Mark Hamill. What can I say? I wish he had a more active role in this show than just art. I do not this hand attack, I do not understand. Every time I think I'm supposed to do, like, a medium jump, but I just cannot get the timing right. Where it's like the 2 hands go back and forth. I don't get this attack. There's a part of me that thinks I can go under, but clearly I can't. Yeah, so Kid Omni-Man, Oliver, we think Invincible finally gets his black suit. And, the black suit indicates the edgier days. What's going to happen from there. Mark ends up, the nuclear plant that, was broken into last season, the Mueller twins break into it this time. The Guardians of the Globe get defeated by them, so Mark comes in to help. Not on Cecil's request, just because it's the right thing to do. And he's getting his ass kicked. And then Oliver comes in to save him. And in the process, Oliver kills both of the Mueller twins. No, Multipole was the previous episode. They do mention him, right, that, like, a prison break, and we get the whole prison break thing here. They're calling him Invincible, which is something I completely forgot about. Right, Mark Invincible, that's funny. I think it was Danny Mata brought up the fact that, like, in the comics, the comics aren't as violent as the show, and the comics usually save the violence for these big moments, so that way they're more shocking. So when, Oliver here kills the Mueller twins, it's like a big shocking moment, because you haven't had anything that violent in a while. Whereas the show, basically every episode has its big violent moment. Not always, but, mostly. And I kind of get that perspective, I do think the show had some violence in it, or the comic, I mean. It definitely had some. But I still think the Oliver moment is shocking. I watched the episode with somebody else, and when Oliver killed the Mueller twins, someone who hasn't read the comics, mind you, because I knew this was coming, they were surprised. Like, they let out an audible gasp. Even if, you know, it's not as shocking as it could be, it was still definitely shocking. They were still surprised by that twist. So I think the show's doing a fine enough job at what it intends to be. I'm still enjoying it. Animation downgrades be... Listen, I would rather have a show with okay animation where we get a season every year over a show with good animation where we get a season every, like, 3 to 4 years. Basically, I don't want us to be in a Euphoria or Stranger Things situation. And if the animation is what comes at the cost of that, then that is a perfectly okay price for me to pay. Just being completely honest here. I am happy to pay the price of lower animation if it means we get a season every year. But yeah, I need to catch up. I've heard episode 4 is mostly a filler episode. Because, you know, it's Prison Break stuff again. That's fine. I'm not too beat up over that. Again, I just feel like the internet doesn't really know what filler is, and I don't know, we'll see. So let's talk Spider-Man. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I have now finished the show, because, you know, I've been slowly working my way through it, but, you know, they released the final 2 episodes, and I was like, fuck it, let me sit down and watch all of this. So I did, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I honestly think this is the best Spider-Man show since Spectacular Spider-Man. It's better than the 2017 show, which I know people hate the 2017 show. I think it's fine. I think the 2017 show is fine. Nothing amazing, but nothing terrible. And it's so much better than Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, fuck, man. I've been watching Ultimate Spider-Man. We'll talk more. We're going to run out of time this week, so I'll talk more about it next week. Because all we have to do is beat this boss. The final boss, or Ultimate Spider-Man, is so unfunny. It's got its good moments, mind you. And every once in a while it makes me laugh. But man, it is literally just Family Guy humor. Meanwhile, I do think Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is funny. It's fun. It's got some creative fight scenes. The twist in the final episode, I did not see coming. I think it works really well, so yeah, full spoilers ahead. So episode 5 is all about them fighting Daredevil, right? Peter is trying to get Harry and Nico to be friends, and so he's doing like a sleepover movie watch along with them, and Norman calls him over to, you know, go check out the building it's being broken into. Hey, turns out it's Daredevil. Why was Daredevil there? I have no fucking idea. Like, he was looking for something, you know, don't trust Norman Osborn, obviously. But it really did just see like, oh, hey, let's get Daredevil in this episode. Wouldn't that be cool? That's really what this episode felt like. I know he's going to come back, you know, the season finale does hint that, you know, one of the girls is working with him. Clearly they're going to do something. Yeah, it was whatever. The Daredevil one was whatever. Episode 7, this is when the Scorpion shows up. And, you know, we see the Scorpion in full suit. He goes to beat up the gang that Lincoln's part of. And we get a good fight scene. The fight scene between Spider-Man and Scorpion is fantastic. I love he beats him, but then you like slowly see it start to unravel. He gets the tides turns on him. He gets his ass kicked. Meanwhile, Norman's, you know, trying to figure out where Osborn is. I think that all works really well. I mean, Octavius, not Osborn. He figures out where Octavius is, and so he doesn't realize Spider-Man's getting his ass kicked, and then kind of sends in the glider last minute. I think all the Scorpion stuff works fine. I'll be honest, I don't really care for Scorpion, but I feel like they used him well enough here. I like, you know, we're seeing Lincoln become the villain. I like how, you know, you see him, like, you know, he wants to stay back and fight, but he's protecting his girl. There we go. Holy shit, we beat the game. Fuck, man. Wait, are we gonna punch the moon? I completely forgot about this. Holy shit, this is just Wreck-It Ralph. We punch the moon, don't we? Seeing this again, I'm remembering it. Oh my god, I completely forgot about this. Fucking Wheatley's out there, man. Oh my god. That is so Looney Tunes. Whatever. It was fine. So yeah, I'm just gonna jump back into it. So yeah, he loses to Scorpion. Scorpion gets away. He gets injured. All around a good episode. Oh, Nico finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. Harry kind of reveals it to him. Or reveals it to her, I mean. And she doesn't believe him, but then she looks in his bag, sees the mask. So she goes and runs away and freaks out about that. In the next episode, basically, we get that moment of, like, Peter not trusting himself. That, you know, Norman says that, oh, I don't need you to be better. Right? I don't need you to be better. You have to be better. At some point in one of these episodes, Norman does the with great power comes great responsibility, but he twists it to with great power comes great respect. I want to say that's this episode, and that was really effective. You know, because this show has been more willing to do some of the traditional Spider-Man stuff that people don't like that the MCU didn't do. And I feel like twisting the line here, but then eventually Peter figures out the truth that no, it's with great power comes great responsibility. I think that's all very good and works well. But he eventually goes back. He has to protect Lonnie. And, you know, the Scorpion's back. He's got another fight. And he's, like, scared to fight the Scorpion. But eventually he gets back. He gets his head in the game. Goes out and fights. Doc Ock gets arrested. And when he gets arrested, Iron Man shows up to arrest him. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that. You know, just, it's the little things, you know. Because this is, again, Civil War is happening in the background of this show. And they don't shy away from mentioning it. But yeah, you know, see, and then Lonnie goes to try to steal some of Otto Octavius' stuff, because Otto's in prison now. And he gets exposed to this gas, which basically makes him super strong, and in the finale we see it's turning his skin to stone. But that's all good. Seeing him and Spider-Man team up to defeat the Scorpion really works. I do like that fight scene. The fights are choreographed really well in this show. This, I think, episode 9, because his suit gets destroyed in episode 8, or in episode 7, I mean, and then in episode 9, he gets a new suit, because, you know, now he's gaining more confidence in himself, and the new suit is, the traditional Spider-Man suit. I think it looks good, you know, it's a good-looking suit. And so, yeah, and in the finale, you find out that all the projects they've been working on for their Oscorp internships with, you know, Dr. Connor and the Wizard and whatnot, turns out that's to make a gateway to another dimension. Doctor Strange tells them not to open the gateway. Norman does so anyways. Venom comes through, and I was like, oh, it's the Venom from the first episode. And then they reveal that the first episode basically is time travel. Because, you know, I thought it really weird in the first episode that, like, you know, they opened, like, a portal to another dimension, Doctor Strange fighting Venom. That felt very weird. But now seeing it, it's like, okay, no, it was time travel. Right, there's this whole thing about Spider-Man can be anyone, right? Any kid could have gotten bitten by that Spider-Man bite. But seeing that the spider, basically, in the episode where Peter's in the hospital, Norman takes a sample of his blood, and they start using that to create new spiders. And it's one of those new spiders that falls through the time portal, travels back in time 6 months, and then is the one that bites Peter. That's a great reveal. So I really like that. I liked him teaming up with Doctor Strange. And then at the end of the episode, Norman and Peter are kind of on the outs, but Harry, Nico, and Peter are all good, and they're basically going to start the Future Foundation. I think they call it WIBE, but it's basically the Future Foundation, and I think that's cool. I think there's a lot of potential there. You know, they're teasing other characters. Doc Ock is going to come back as Doc Ock. Daredevil's going to come back. We know Gwen Stacy's going to be in the next season. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I'm glad it's getting another season. I'm curious to see what it's going to do. Yeah. God, do I really not talk about Moon Girl this week? Fuck, man. Because that's it. That's it. We're out of time. I'm gonna save Moon Girl for next week. We shouldn't have that much news next week. I'm gonna save Moon Girl for next week. Let's just go straight to the outro. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed Donkey Kong. I'm glad we played it. And yeah, we're basically out of time. Because I gotta go. So with that, yeah, no, go check, is it worth it at this price? No, but I still recommend you play it nevertheless. Because I did have a good time. But I'm hoping for Tropical Freeze, which we might start next week. We might do Pokemon. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Till next time, peace. God, I can't believe I beat that game so fast.